course, I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. This is Nick Wright. You got a lot going on over here, Nick. A lot of numbers, a lot of stats.
Got a lot
of
to do. A lot to do, a lot going on.
We only have 3 hours to do it. Do you feel like that's enough time for you to get it all in today?
I don't know how people do 30-minute sports television shows, Chris Carter. I have no idea. I feel like 3 hours and like, damn, there's stuff left.
Wasn't this originally supposed to be a 3.5-hour show?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
You guys look nice.
Thank you very much. I don't know what's on 3.5 hours.
When in doubt.
Let's not give anybody any ideas. Every major show starts on a half-hour, Jenna. Okay. Don't you know that?
And take a sip of coffee.
You're right, Jen.
All right. Well, let us start a 3-hour show of a lot of numbers, a lot of stats, a lot of sports.
Nick's hot takes, they said we got to make
we got
to cut that down.
Cut that down big time. Apparently, if you put something out into the ether long enough, it will definitely happen. How long have we been waiting for Cavs players not named LeBron to show up? Last night in Game 1 against the Raptors, they finally showed up, helping Cleveland win in overtime. This is a great game, 113 to 112. LeBron James had a quiet triple-double. 4 of his teammates scored in double digits. Yay for low bars! Toronto, following along its recent script, losing their 7th straight playoff game to Cleveland. Boy, they just really, LeBron's got their number. Here's LeBron on the win.
We knew we were going to get their best shot today. You know, they knew we didn't have much rest. They knew we didn't have much preparation. You know, they kind of been waiting around for us, and you know, we just wanted to come in with the best game plan that we could in a short time. You know, execute offensively. You know, shots weren't going in. Like I said, for me personally, I was, you know, at probably one of my worst games of the season, and just try to, you know, just try to make things happen, you know, at the right time.
We had many opportunities close this game out. You know, like you said, we couldn't buy a bucket. You know, we got some great looks. We had a lot of shots point blank at the rim that were in and out. Freddie got 2 great looks. You know, we can name countless of things, but you know, it should never came down to depend on none of those. You know, but it happens. Now we understand what we gotta do next game.
So this was one of those games where did the Cavs win or did the Raptors lose? And I think you can make a fair point for either one of them. How should both of these teams, CC, feel after last night's game?
You can absolutely, but from a feeling standpoint, Toronto, they have to feel horrible. Now, you talking about getting Cleveland. We know the history there. Going into this game, had lost 6 straight in the playoffs in a humiliating fashion. At the end of the season, where Toronto was playing the best basketball that we've seen this play over this stretch, this tenure with this team, they got smashed by the Cavs. And 2 games that meant everything to Toronto didn't mean anything to Cleveland. They got smashed. Cleveland just came through the most difficult series that we've seen, them not going against some type of championship caliber team and struggling with the Pacers in 7 games, no rest. They put it in the game plan. That's a 24-hour game plan, all right? Ty Lue, they were watching film yesterday. He decided, you know something, the team was locked in. He saw it in their eyes after an hour of watching film. That's all they did. They had a walk-through shoot-around. That's all they did. So for me, what I saw was, because what I thought the Cavs was lacking was, forget continuity, but they missed training camp. After they went on the great stretch of basketball early, guys got injured. Guys got traded. They went through a lot of turmoil. They need these games. They needed that 7-game series with the Pacers to be able to come together and the other guys start to play. So from Toronto's standpoint, this to me is one of the biggest losses in the franchise history. Home court advantage, everything. Rest. I mean, you got the matchups, and you still can't get past the Cavs when LeBron doesn't play great. You can't forget that part.
Right. LeBron said it was one of his worst games, maybe my worst game of the year. And you lose. You have a double-digit early lead, and you lose. You're rested. They're exhausted. You have home court. They don't. You're the healthiest team in the playoffs. And you miss 11 straight shots to finish the game. In the final 4 minutes of the game, LeBron makes 2 baskets. Your team makes 0. This is, you mentioned.
They missed at least 10 at the rim.
CC, in the 4th quarter, how about 13? They were 3 of 16 inside 5 feet. That's the length of this desk. Like, This was one of those losses you mentioned in the regular season where the Raptors playing great, Cavs weren't, but the Cavs won. I talked about that was a worst-case scenario loss for the Raptors because that was a game they had a huge halftime lead. The Raptors were feeling great, and all of a sudden, LeBron and the Cavs came back and ended up stealing that game. I think it was 132-129. Well, this is another worst-case scenario loss for Toronto.
Yeah, the only way it could really be worse for them, Nick, is if one of their star players had gotten hurt.
Agreed. Absolutely. Barring injury, it could not have been worse. Like, if LeBron goes out and does what he did in Game 7, if LeBron has 40 points and is dominating the game, and or by the way, if it was the way they lost last year against the Raptors in the playoffs, the Cavs hit 35 more three-pointers than Toronto. If the Cavs just had a lights-out, oh my God, shooting night.
Yeah, but that wasn't possible this year, Nick, because we've changed our offense. We have perimeter shooters. Like, our three-point shooting's going to be better.
Oh, for Toronto, right.
Yes.
You're not going to have that discrepancy.
But that's why it was less what Cleveland did and more what Toronto didn't do. And you wonder if just seeing LeBron out there when usually he's at his best, if that just froze this Toronto team, and all of a sudden they were like, well, we don't win these games. We're probably not going to win this game, and then no shots.
We can blame it on whatever we want, but there's some clear examples as far as not being able to finish in the paint. They dominated the glass. They dominated in the paint, but losing a possession after a timeout on a 5-second violation, Kyle Lowry throwing the ball in over LeBron. You know LeBron's guarding. Like, why would you have him throw the ball in? You just calling a timeout. Put a taller person out there that has a height advantage, or at least it's neutral. They negate each other. Like, bad coaching at the end, wasting timeouts. Like, so they didn't have a timeout.
The biggest shot of your season. And Fred VanVleet's been an awesome story. A potential Sixth Man of the Year candidate.
Yes.
He was injured.
With what?
With a right shoulder injury. He's a right-handed shooter. He hadn't played in the fourth quarter. Let's have our biggest shot of the season come down to Fred VanVleet. All of it was unforgivable by Toronto. And listen, one of the reasons I believe, CC, that the Pacers were a bad matchup for the Cavs. There's a lot of X's and O's stuff, but it's also because their best player, Victor Oladipo, doesn't have any bad experience against LeBron. When he played in the East, his team was terrible, never made the playoffs. Played a year in OKC. He's never played LeBron in the playoffs. He went into that series saying, you know what, I'm going to play the best player in the world as close to even as possible.
Well, because the one thing also he can do is because we know from LeBron going back to Derrick Rose when he was in his prime.
Yeah.
When they put LeBron on that point guard late in the game, which we saw last night, he did to Kyle Lowry, shut him down. Yeah. They can't do that to Oladipo because he can beat LeBron off the dribble.
He's too fast.
And that's the disadvantage. There's some other things as far as the Pacers, them being a younger team, and they do some things that give Cleveland problems, but talent-wise, Toronto is far more talented.
Agreed. The point that I'm making on Oladipo is Oladipo, we were talking at halftime. I said if the Cavs had a lead at halftime against the Pacers, you felt the entire second half the Cavs were just desperately trying to hold on for dear life. They were down 3 at half against the Raptors. LeBron walking off the court, shaking his head, yes, feeling confident. There was no mental block from Oladipo. I've never beat this guy. How do I beat this guy?
I think also
that exists with Toronto.
That initial burst that you know you're going to get being there in Toronto, that energy, how well the team played early. They were down 14 to be able to get it back at 3. Yes, you could see that. We were talking on the phone there. You were like, yeah, but even if the end, I could see what you're saying now because of the history. Man, and the history, even that the Cavs, these younger Cavs player, because what LeBron did in the last month of the season against the Raptors.
Not to mention the fact the Cavs never led during regulation.
Yes.
To win a game or to beat Toronto and to lose a game where your opponent never led during regulation is something else. How deflating is this for them moving forward? How much more of an advantage do the Cavs have looking ahead now?
Listen, I thought the Cavs had a distinct advantage over Toronto going into it because of the matchups, because of the history, because the Raptors don't have anyone you can even throw at LeBron. But the only way the Raptors had a shot in this series to me was if the games, the 50-50 games, they got to win them. And this wasn't a 50-50 game. This was a 75-25 Raptors game.
Yeah.
And they lost it. You mentioned, this is only the second time in 20 years a team has lost a playoff game without ever trailing in regulation. It doesn't happen. And the Raptors got to sit on that and deal with that tonight, headed into tomorrow.
The only thing that keeps me from being overly optimistic is I've seen the Cavs. I'm still concerned about their support or lack of support of LeBron. Now, he got that last night, but Kevin Love didn't score. I mean, in a game that we need him, doesn't get in double figures. So I'm like, okay, now the game number 2 is vitally important. We understand that. But I know if they get it to 1-1, I know Toronto can beat them one game in Cleveland because this is Cleveland team. They're still a Jekyll and Hyde. LeBron will pick up his play, though. That's what they really should be concerned about game 2 and moving forward.
And on a night where LeBron called it arguably the worst game of his career between
of the season.
Yeah, a little drama. A little drama in that.
He accounted for 59 points last night. I hope he just plays like a medium game next time for game 2. We'll talk much more about this, and you mentioned Kevin Love. We will talk about his role moving forward. But coming up, are the Golden State Warriors unstoppable now that Steph Curry is back?
He must have had a remarkable season if that was his worst game.
Next on First and Third.
Do you think that was a little pat himself on the back?